Hi, my name's Brittany,
My name's Heather.
and we have done the Fair Housing Act of 1988. The Fair Housing Act was amended in 1988. It prohibits housing discrimination on a bias of race, color, religion, sex, disability, and family status, along with natural origin. The coverage includes private housing, housing that receives federal financial assistance, and state and local government housing.
The law is unlawful to discriminate in any aspect of selling or renting housing or to deny a dwelling to a buyer or a renter because of the disability of an individual. An individual associated with the buying or renting of a unit, the individual who intends to live in the residence. With covered activities including, for example, financing, new construction design, and advertising.
The history of the act. Basically, the act was brought forth after Martin Luther King's assassination.
Yep.
The discrimination based on sex was added in 1974. When the law was amended in 1988, its changes included discrimination against people of disability and family status.
Some principles that make the act accommodating um, are no one may take any of the following actions based on race, color, natural origin, religion, sex, familiar status, or handicap. And some examples are
Refusing to rent or sell housing, refusing to negotiate for housing, set different terms, conditions, privileges for sale or rental of the dwelling, meaning that if a blind person wants to rent from you and you have a no pet policy,
right.
you need to make accommodations that their seeing eye dog can actually live there.
Help them, right.
And if somebody with a wheelchair wants to rent from you, they are able to make changes to the apartment. You do not have to pay for them, but you need to allow them to make the accommodations for themselves.
Yeah. Additional atypicality within the scope of this law. If you are someone associated that has a physical or mental disability, including hearing, mobility, or visual impairment, chronic mental illness or AIDS related mental retardation, the limits for help me out, Brittany.
Well, basically, what happens is that if you have the mental disability, if you have any sort of illness whatsoever, you need to have record of this disability for the law to take effect with you. You can't just claim that you have AIDS. You can't claim you have any sort of mental illness to get this housing for your landlords, for anybody to say, yeah, sure, you can do that. You need to have the record of you actually having this from a doctor, from anything of what you have.
Yep.
Basically, it's accommodating but you need to make it accommodating yourself. Apart from that, we are both going to be teachers. So
Yep.
we have found that this act is going to help us with knowing that our kids are going to be off the streets. They're not going to be living in a car with their parents, struggling to being able to know that they have a shelter to live under.
And I mean, these shelters are even right in our own neighborhood. There's one right down the street that accommodates for those students or families who make little income or have disabilities, and able to have a house and live a normal life, or normal quote unquote life that
We're not going to have to, as teachers, if we find out, say, Sally, from down the grapevine, we find out that Sally doesn't have a house,
a hotel or something. Yeah.
We can contact her parents. I mean, I know it will be uncomfortable to talk about it, but it gives us the knowledge of this act gives us the upper hand of knowing that we can talk to the parents with the information and say, well, you can go get help from the government because they're going to be able to help you out because you're not making enough money to get your own house. So somewhere down the line, this may help us in our classroom.
Yeah, I do believe so.
all in all, basically, just a recap is that the law helps anybody with low income, disability,
Yeah, race, religion.
anything that anyone could be discriminated against, that any landlord would say, I don't want you living here because you're divorced. I don't want you living here because
your son's in a wheelchair. Or...
Right. So anything is going to be covered. It was brought forth because people were being discriminated against. And after Martin Luther King was killed, the thought of people being discriminated against, that people knew that it needed to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's, and really anything that you can be discriminated against is covered under this law. Mm-hmm. If you're sick, if you're just, you're in bad shape and you need some help, this is what's going to cover you.
So that is the act of, what act did we do again? We know what act we did. That was the act
of the Fair Housing Act of 1988. Thanks.
Thank you. We have to close out now. Hold on.
Red box.
Red box.